12-year-old Sam was a city boy through and through. He had grown up surrounded by skyscrapers, shopping malls, and fast food restaurants. Everything he wanted was just a click or a phone call away, and he rarely had to wait for anything. So when his parents told him he'd be spending the summer on his grandfather's farm, he was less than thrilled. Sam's grandfather, Joe, was a tall, weathered man in his 70s. He had worked on the family farm his entire life. His hands were rough from years of labor, his face tanned from days spent under the sun, and his eyes crinkled from decades of smiling. Joe was a quiet, patient man who took pride in his farm and his work, even though he didn't have much by city standards. When Sam arrived, he wrinkled his nose at the smell of manure and felt out of place in his designer sneakers, which were quickly covered in mud. He complained about the heat, the bugs, and the lack of Wi-Fi. Joe listened without judgment, smiling and nodding, but he didn't offer any sympathy. Instead, he simply said, "You're welcome to join me every morning to help out. There's a lot to learn here if you're open to it." Sam rolled his eyes. What could he possibly learn from a farm? The next morning, Sam was woken up at the crack of dawn by the sound of his grandfather moving around the house. He groaned and pulled the blanket over his head, hoping he could sleep in. But his grandfather knocked on his door and called out, "Rise and shine, Sam. It's time to get to work." Grudgingly, Sam got up and joined his grandfather outside. The sun was barely over the horizon, casting a soft glow over the fields. Joe handed Sam a shovel and showed him how to dig small trenches for planting seeds. Sam worked for only a few minutes before his back started to ache, and he complained, "This is too hard. Why can't we just get a machine to do it?" Joe looked at him with a gentle smile. Machines have their place, but there's value in doing things with your own hands. When you put effort into something, you appreciate it more. Sam didn't understand, but he kept working, though not without frequent sighs and complaints. Over the next few days, Joe taught Sam about planting, watering, and caring for the crops. Sam was impatient, constantly asking when they would see results. Joe simply said, "It takes time. You can't rush growth." One day, Sam watched as his grandfather patiently tended to a row of corn plants, checking each one carefully. "Why do you spend so much time on these plants?" he asked. "They're just crops. They'll grow anyway." Joe knelt down beside him and pointed at a single corn plant. "This little plant depends on me to survive," he said. "If I neglect it, it'll wither. If I rush, I could damage it. But if I take my time, care for it, and let it grow at its own pace, it'll reward me with food that sustains us." Sam was quiet, thinking about this. He'd never thought about food as something that required such dedication. As the days went by, Sam started to understand his grandfather's patience. He saw the pride in Joe's eyes when he looked at the fields, the care he took with each plant, and the quiet satisfaction he got from seeing them grow. One morning, as they were harvesting vegetables, Sam noticed something surprising. He felt a sense of pride too. The vegetables he helped plant and care for weren't just food. They were a result of his hard work. That night, as they sat down to dinner, Sam looked at the fresh vegetables on his plate and said, "I never realized how much work goes into this." His grandfather smiled and nodded, pleased that Sam was beginning to see the value of hard work. On his last day at the farm, Joe took Sam aside and handed him a small packet of seeds. "Take these home with you," he said. "Plant them somewhere you'll see them every day. Take care of them, and let them remind you that good things take time and effort. You can't rush growth, but with patience, you can create something meaningful." When Sam returned to the city, he planted the seeds in a small pot on his windowsill. Every day he watered them and watched them grow, remembering his grandfather's words. Over time, he noticed a change in himself. He became more patient, more willing to work for the things he wanted, and more appreciative of the food on his plate and the work others put into it. Sam never forgot that summer on the farm or the lessons his grandfather taught him. In the years that followed, whenever he faced challenges or wanted to rush through something, he would think of Joe in the fields, and he would remind himself to slow down, put in the effort, and trust the process.